Welcome to That's Classified with military aerospace historian Michael Schratt. With over 35 years of experience in the mechanical engineering aerospace industry, Michael brings a unique nuts and bolts perspective to the topic. This weekly program explores subjects such as UFO crash retrievals, classified aircraft, secret government underground facilities, historical UFO cases, unidentified submerged objects, and so much more. But now it's time to get this show off the ground. And here is your host for That's Classified, Michael Schratt.
Good to be with you today. The subject for today's presentation is the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. Now, this represents a tremendous series of UFO sightings that took place between 1982 to 1989. Specific dates, which were mission critical, were 81 time frame, well, actually going into 82 to 86. That was the big Reagan buildup here. But we're talking about 25,000 eyewitnesses that reported a large boomerang-shaped craft hovering silently over the Taconic State Parkway, multiple other states and locations, and it caused an absolute sensation. But it's been over 40 years now, and it's almost completely forgotten about. Many of the original witnesses are all long since passed now, and I want this to be a chance for their voice to be heard, even though they're no longer with us. But I think this series of sightings is extremely important to cover. It's almost completely forgotten about, and I want to go ahead and get started here. Here are some of the good reference works. So if you find this subject interesting, I recommend these books. Number one, Night Siege, the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. The middle one here, Hudson Valley UFOs, the best evidence by Linda Zimmerman. Silent Over the Hudson by M.E. Dorvey. These are very good reference works. It gives you really good details. Jalen Hynek and Philip Imbrogno. Philip Imbrogno has got to get credit for his early research, which I feel was sound research. Linda Zimmerman is just incredible. She's a great friend of mine. She digs really deep, and you're going to see things that you probably haven't heard of before. So this is where we want to start with the reference material. Now, the Hudson Valley cross-section of society here. When we're talking about the sightings in this location, we're talking about engineers, teachers, lawyers, mechanics, artists, college students, blue-collar workers, IBM executives. In other words, a group of people that cannot be easily fooled. That's what we're talking about here in the Hudson Valley. This is only an hour north of downtown New York City. And we kind of want to start here with our good friend Abraham Lincoln. And here he says, quote, "You may fool all of the people some of the time. You can even fool some of the people all of the time. But you can't fool all of the people all of the time." And that's true of the Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings. They might be able to fool some people, but they can't fool us all. Not anymore. If all of the Hudson Valley Boomerang sightings by witnesses during the 1980s could be boiled down to one word, it would be industrial. It's a good word to describe it. It really is. This thing was industrial. A couple other terms used to describe the Hudson Valley Boomerang. Number one, it was bold. It was presumptuous. It was arrogant. It was brazen. The dictionary definition of brazen is bold and without shame. That's exactly how this thing behaved here. Now I want to go over the critical dates. These are the ones we want to touch on here. December 31st, 1982, that was the beginning origin point of the whole wave here. February 26, 1983, Monique O'Driscoll and her daughter, also named Monique, had an incredible sighting at White Pond. March 17th, 1983, Dennis Sant I-84 sighting. March 24th, 1983, Taconic State Highway sighting. This was the big event. October 28th, 1983, Jim Cook sighting at Croton Falls Reservoir. July 1984, Robert Pazzoli videotaped Brewster, New York. July 24th, 1984, sighting over the Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. November 1985, Yorktown Heights, Maureen Davis sighting. So these are the critical dates and locations, what we want to cover here today. So here is the 10,000 foot altitude look down map on all of the hot areas where the Hudson Valley Boomerang was sighted. We're going to start on the upper left. We've got Peekskill, we've got Newburgh, we've got the Hudson River cutting through. We've got the Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. We've got Millwood, Taconic State Parkway. We've got Brewster, New York, huge area for sightings. Danbury, Connecticut. So now we've gone east, and now we're in a completely different state now. Ridgefield, Wilton, Weston, Westport, Bridgeport, New Haven. This thing was all around this multi-state area here. And I'm hoping that someone listening to this broadcast, and if you're only listening, hop over to KGRA and catch me on the video feed so that you can see all the graphics here. I'm hoping someone that's listening or watching this was a first-hand witness to the boomerang over the Taconic State Parkway. I would love to hear from you. Absolutely. We should listen very carefully to what the witnesses are seeing and describing to us. And I'm going to read this again because I think it's very important. We should listen very carefully to what the witnesses are seeing and describing to us, okay? Because we're on, it's called White Pond Road. And, again, this is February 26, 1983. So it's cold out. There's snow. When they were going around this White Pond, it was Monique's daughter named Monique that saw this white light over the trees. She didn't know what it was, and she alerted her mother. And her mother hit the gas so that she could intercept this thing before it got to White Pond. So let's go on to the next slide here. Now you can see this is her original painting, February 26, 1983. What she saw was a massive boomerang-shaped craft because she stopped, pulled off to the side of the road. She got out of the vehicle, was standing at the shoreline when this V-shaped boomerang craft flew directly over her at treetop level. She said that she could hit it with a baseball. That's how close she was. Once it parked itself over the frozen pond, it started flashing all these multicolored lights. So the reds would go off, the yellows would go off, the blues would go off, and then the pattern repeated, okay? But let me move on to the next slide here. Here is the more detailed illustration that kind of shows you what she described. Now, she also described mechanical tubes and pipes and cylinders and vents and things that look like heating register on the bottom of this thing at close range. And when all these multicolored flashing lights were going on, she could see the reflection of the craft on the ice below. She could see all the lights reflecting on the ice below. Now, here you see the Philadelphia Inquirer, September 28th, 1984. So Monique is kind of crouched down here in the grass, and they're right on the shoreline of White Pond. And someone from the newspaper was holding Monique's painting off camera and simulating what the thing looked like back in 1983. I know what they did here. So I wanted to clean this thing up. Can we re-render it? Can we make it higher resolution? Can we make it sharper? That brought me here. It starts to come alive now. You can see what this woman saw, and I don't think she's lying to us. I really don't. I really don't. Okay, so Citizen Register, September 11th, 1983. And this is Monique here. She says, quote, "I looked up and saw whole mechanisms," she said, "long tubular things protruding from the bottom of the object. which she added was covered with a heavy metal grillwork. So I'm going to stop right here. Think about what she's telling us here. Tubular things, protrusions, grillwork, multicolored flashing lights. Does this sound like an alien spacecraft? I mean, let's be serious here. Do aliens need pipes and cylinders and multicolored flashing lights? Do they need wings like a flying wing? What would be the point? There's no air out in space. What would be the point of the multicolored flashing lights? Are they think they're going to find someone out there? It is screaming a man-made technology. Let's go on here. Again, Philadelphia Inquirer, September 28th, 1984. Quote, and not one sound from this thing. Isn't that interesting? Something that size, if it had been an airplane engine, it would shake your windows out. I could see the underbelly part. It's solid. It had metal type work like cross beams and tubular things hanging down here and there. I was so close I could have thrown a ball and hit it. I followed it and then it just went poofed and it was gone that fast. So again, she's going into more detail on the mechanical structure, on the cross beams that she saw on the bottom of this craft itself. All right, so here is my final rendering. A lot of work went into this. So you've got Monique pulled off to the side of the road. Her daughter's in the car. They tried to raise someone on their CB radio, but they only got static. So now it's a CE1 case and it's a CE2 case because it's a close encounter of the second kind. It had physical effects. So I've got the boomerang-shaped craft. I've got the mechanical tubes, pipes, and cylinders. I've got the multicolored flashing lights. And the key to this was to show the reflection of the lights from the bottom of the craft onto the ice below. That was the linchpin for all of this here. All right, now let's move on to March 17th, 1983. And this is the sighting map here. And I'm going to run through the timeline here. So if you look at the upper left, you've got Cold Spring along the Hudson River, 8:30 Croton on Hudson, 8:45 Peekskill. So whatever this thing was, it came down the Hudson River, looks like, made a brief northern bound track. Then it started going eastbound. It got into Yorktown Heights at 9 p.m., Mount Kisco, Bedford Hills, it went eastbound. Then it clocked down. It went south to Pleasantville. Then it looked like it ripped northbound along the Taconic State Parkway. From there, we can see that it kind of went east and then it kind of split 10:30 to 10:30. So it was at multiple locations at the same time. Are we dealing with two different vehicles? And then 10:45, it went eastbound toward Danbury. So it's like it went down, it went up, then it went up higher, then it went down, and basically this zigzag component flight path here. But I want to blow this area up right here. This was really ground zero right here, Brewster, New York. Extremely important here. This is Brewster, New York, I-84 overpass, ground zero for the March 17th, 1983 sighting. So if I could take you back in time and plop you right here, you would be plus or minus 10 feet directly below where this thing was hovering above the I-84 over. This is it. This is the place right here where it all went down. And I want to take you to what people were seeing. People were seeing this massive boomerang-shaped craft hovering over the Taconic State Parkway. Now, this case went all the way to Unsolved Mysteries. You may have seen this before. It was on Unsolved Mysteries. Dennis Sant could see people pulled off, stopped, and looking at this vehicle. There were hundreds of people that were watching this. Okay. Now, here's a photo of Dennis Sant. I cleaned up the version from Unsolved Mysteries. He was the deputy clerk from Putnam County, so a reliable witness. Now, I met this gentleman in person. It's been 8 years now, I think, since I gave my lecture out there in Danbury. He was there. Credible guy. I found him very credible. No reason for this gentleman to be lying here. All right, so backstory on him. Around 8:30 p.m. at night, his family was returning from a church engagement. As they were driving home, they saw some type of a light or craft above their house, actually. When they got home, as they were driving home, the light disappeared. It was obscured. So they went inside, they took off their jackets, and then Dennis said that he felt something strange. So he came back out, looked around, and saw the craft near the I-84 overpass. He kind of thought, wouldn't it be interesting if it would come closer? And it did. It got itself across the street and then made its way over to his house. And here you can see this large boomerang-shaped craft with multicolored lights on the bottom. He said that there was a girder structure, a mechanical girder structure below, and it was beaming spotlights down on the lawn in his location here. Now, let's go back to Philadelphia Inquirer, September 28th, 1984. Here's what he said. I wanted to be underneath it, he said. As I got out to the road, all the lights on the object suddenly intensified, illuminating the road as if it was a night football game in a stadium. As it hovered, I could make out dark, smoky, colored metallic beams underneath. Huge, huge beams. So this tracks with what Monique O'Driscoll was talking about. She talked about beams and girders. Very similar description of what's seen on the understructure of this craft here. Now, we move on to the big event. The big event. This is March 24th, 1983, Taconic State Parkway. And what happened on this parkway is nothing short of miraculous. I'm going to run through this here. This is the location here. So on the southern part here, you've got Millwood. On the section on the north part, you've got Yorktown Heights. So that was following the track of the Taconic State Parkway. So here is my graphic that shows you the path that this thing was following from Millwood to Yorktown Heights. And what this thing was doing, it was parking itself 10 feet above the treetops, virtually silent. There was no noise. There were no ultralights. There were no planes flying in formation. And when this thing parked itself over the treetops and made this 180-degree turn, it didn't bank like a B-2 bomber. What it did is it looked like it sat itself on a record player and then did a flat 180-degree turn. While all the lights on the bottom of the vehicle were embedded into concrete, they moved as one unified coalition unit. There was no variation between the distances between the lights whatsoever. So right there, we can discount ultralights and we can discount planes flying in formation. There's no way they could achieve the level of precision that this craft achieved. This shows you exactly how this thing turned. Now, this was silent at treetop level. Can you imagine being under this thing here? All right, so this is a typical photograph of what it looked like driving along the Taconic State Parkway. I'm sure some of you listening have been on this before. I mean, at this point, it's famous. It's a total famous piece of road here. And this is what people reported. They saw this absolutely massive boomerang-shaped craft, at minimum the size of a football field. It had tubes and pipes and cylinders. It had lights on the bottom of it. It had a beaming spotlight shining down to the road below. Now, there were hundreds, literally hundreds of people that pulled off to the side of the road. They got out of their vehicles. And it's so interesting because not one of these people literally said anything, and they didn't talk to each other because they were so awe-inspired and shocked and rattled to their core about what they were seeing. I mean, there was no time to even speak. They were just completely focused on this. Now, I did a whole series of renderings on this to drive this point home. Take a look at the structure, look at the beams, look at the girders. You've got the spotlight shining down. Let me do another one here. I mean, can you imagine being with this? I would love to have seen this at such low level here. And this thing was making a 180-degree flat turn. Let me do another one here. This is another version. I mean, it held up the traffic in all lanes, essentially. Let's do one more here. You can see the pipes and the cylinders. All the people pulled off to the side of the road. This must have been absolutely an incredible series of sightings. We'll do one more just to drive the point home here. But again, this is the Taconic State Parkway, March 24th, 1983. Now, here is Patton Trader, Mount Kisco, New York, March 25th, 1983. So within one day, they had this newspaper clipping. So They got on this story. It says, what was that brightly colored object reported in area skies Thursday? The object was seen from White Plains, New York to as far as Yorktown. One witness described seeing alternating colors between white and green as the object zigzagged across the sky toward the north. Yep, it's tracking with my drawing. Same thing they're saying right here. Herald Statesman, Yonkers, New York, May 22nd, 1983. Local UFOs called historical and interesting. The object was said to hover as low as 30 feet from the ground. Right there, full stop. You're not allowed to fly 30 feet above the ground in a plane, in a Cessna 172, in an ultralight. You really can't do that, especially at the time that this thing was flying. Make sudden right angle turns. Okay, there's another point. Planes flying in formation can't make right angle turns, like on a dime. No. And emit a low frequency electrical humming noise. Okay. One witness stated that if he climbed to the top of his roof, he could have hit it with a stick. That's interesting. Low altitude. The reporter dispatched February 25th, 1988. At the time, area police departments were deluged with reports of the object, most of them coming on March 24th, 1983. Traffic stopped on the Taconic State Parkway, and motorists got out of their cars to gawk at the night sky. Love the wording on this. All right, let's go to an eyewitness report from someone who was there and saw this at close range. Now, take a look at her drawing here. This is 9 to 9:15. Location, Croton Avenue, Ossining, New York. Okay, you can see where she was, and you can see her sketch here at the bottom. I'm going to move on to the next slide. This is March 24th, 1983, the exact time that we're talking about here. And then you can see her schematic drawing of her car parked. The craft is directly above her. She's actually got her car below this boomerang here. And she says that she didn't get out of the car and she regretted not getting out of the car. And then she kind of says, I will try to draw the lights as they looked, the last two sightings of what I think may have happened. And she did a really good job here. So I took her sketch and I gave it some serious thought. And we put it into a nice illustration here to give you an idea what she may have seen on the night of March 24th, 1983. Let's continue on here. Taconic State Parkway, Millwood, New York, Ed Burns, IBM programmer. So again, when we go back to that original slide talking about the cross-section of society in the Hudson Valley area, these people were professionals. They were teachers. They were lawyers. There were blue-collar workers. There were IBM professionals. This is one of those IBM program managers, Ed Burns, a reliable witness. Now, what did he describe? What did he see? Here's Jalen Hynek and Ed Burns, IBM programmer. This is October 1983. And you've got Jalen Hynek taking snapshots of Ed Burns here, describing his sighting. Nice blow up of Mr. Hynek. Here's Ed Burns describing the scene. There's Philip Imbrogno, Ed Burns, and Jalen Hynek. They're at the location right here. So it would have been right in this area. And then here he is describing what this location would have looked like. I mean, incredible. I would love to have been there to see this craft. Now, here's what he said here. These are his key takeaways. Extremely large apparent size, much larger than a conventional aircraft, slow movement, complete absence of engine noise. Now, if it was ultralights flying in formation, not a chance. Ultralights use two-cycle engines, and they can hear them from 5 miles away. So we can discount that. A structured appearance suggesting a single craft. Radio interference occurring immediately before the sighting. Another telltale sign that it wasn't airplanes flying in formation. The object passing directly overhead. Burns told investigators, quote, the lights became more profound. Then they came right over my car. I shut off the radio, rolled down the window, and looked out at this huge craft above me. I heard no noise. It was moving silently and slowly. What he is describing here is one solid piece of a craft. He is not describing planes flying in formation. He's not describing ultralights flying in formation. This is you could say he's a trained observer. This is not planes flying in formation. So here's my illustration of what this Ed Burns saw. Must have been incredible. Must have been absolutely incredible. He didn't get out of the vehicle, but he peeked his head out and got a good look at this craft above the treetops here. Investigation results. So for March 17th and March 24th, 1983, 90% of the witnesses reported a boomerang-shaped craft, 65% reported a buzzing or humming sound. That brings us to this interesting slide. Mount Storm Ski Slope. And this is one of their promotional flyers here. It says, enjoy the pleasures of Mount Storm Ski Area and Recreation Area. All this so close to home. This is all so long ago now. This is 40 years ago now. Unfortunately, this is all ancient history. It's forgotten about. People don't even know about these sightings, but at one time it was burning up everything. It was all over the news. It was international, and now you don't hear a word about this. I want to take you to this gentleman's sighting. Gene Mellon. He was with two other young adults at the time. They were pulling up to the entrance of the ski slope, and he saw this very interesting lighting arrangement, which he thought was the opening of another ski run. But as he got closer, he said that he eventually was standing below this boomerang-shaped craft that had tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom. There were what looked like white/blue colored lights that looked like flash bulbs going off. So there was flashes going off. And then he said that on the bottom of this, there was a concave, almost like a half globe embedded into the bottom understructure of the craft itself. October 28th, 1983, Croton Falls Reservoir, Jim Cook sighting. Now, this one's described in detail. He was driving down the perimeter of the road. He saw this craft that had red lights on the bottom. It was projecting what he called a beaming light toward the water. And between the water and the bottom of the craft, there was this projection screen, which is hard to illustrate here, but I gave it a shot. Now, he said that he got out of his car. He walked 200 feet through the woods and was up on the shoreline looking at this craft. The Reporter Dispatch, February 25th, 1983. Brewster couple baffles experts with tape of UFO. So here you see Robert Pazzoli is showing investigators the videotape that he took of this craft going across the sky. He was the one gentleman who got a videotape of this thing. So I thought, let's see if we can get out some more details. Let's see if we can refine this newspaper clipping and draw out a little bit more, find out results here and re-render this. And I got to here, which I'm happy with it. I mean, it's period correct. It's early 1980s. It is checking the boxes. And you can find this video on YouTube. You can see what Robert Pazzoli recorded. And I want to take you to the assessment of JPL as well here. So this is Reporter Dispatch, February 25th, 1988. A letter released last week from the director of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, a division of NASA, suggests that the lights depicted in the tape were attached to one rigid object. So we're talking about NASA here. If it's good enough for JPL, I think it's good enough to state that at least they believe that it was one solid craft and not planes flying in formation. Pazzoli said that before the tape was made, he also shot a series of pilots flying in a V formation on the night of July 24th. He also was aware of the UFO sightings in the area from news reports. Quote, we went outside to walk the dog out back and glanced up. This time, there's something that was totally different than the pilots, he said. It was different because it appeared to rotate and did not break up, not like the pilots. So the bottom line is people that saw the actual Hudson Valley Boomerang and people that saw these quote unquote pilots flying in formation could immediately tell the difference here. So that's what I want to drill down on this. It's very clear that there are two things going on during the Hudson Valley UFO sightings during the 1980s. After sightings of the authentic UFO, private pilots flying small planes were sent in by government officials directly connected to the FAA to quote unquote muddy the waters and discredit sightings of the authentic boomerang-shaped craft. So what we've got here is one of these boomerang-shaped craft flying along the Taconic State Parkway, and then within 60 minutes, you've got a formation of 5 Cessna 172s or Cessna 152s, or it could be Piper Cherokees flying in a V formation, exactly the same flight path that the boomerang just did 60 minutes earlier, trying to discredit the actual vehicle. That's what they were doing here. They were doing a switcheroo. They were muddying the waters, and they were throwing in disinformation by bringing these pilots in. Now, Linda Zimmerman tracked at least one of these pilots down, and she also got confirmation that the FAA was told to stand down. So I trust Linda Zimmerman here. So here are our pilots. They're at Stormville Airport. You see their Cessna 172 high wings in the back. They are conspiring and getting ready to commit this hoax here. I'm going to move on to the next slide. And this is what it looked like along the Taconic State Parkway. Now, would this fool you into thinking that you saw a single piece? Okay. These planes would be varying like 3 feet, 2 feet. There'd always be this little bit of a movement between the lights. You would hear the engines from the Lycoming engines. Okay. That would not be silent. The lighting patterns didn't totally match. It certainly didn't for Monique, because she talked about multicolored flashing lights. These planes could not hover. They could not make 180-degree flat turns. There's so many reasons why it wasn't planes flying in formation, which the original boomerang could do. So here they've already done their deadly sin here. They've landed back at the airport, and now they're having a knee-slapping good old time laughing at all of us that we fell for their joke. Well, not anymore, because we got these guys now. We know that they were told by the FAA to hoax these. We know their flight path. It's been exposed now. We caught these guys red-handed here. Some, but not all, sightings in Danbury, Connecticut were attributed to small single-engine Cessna 152 aircraft flying in formation. However, those who saw both the planes and the genuine Hudson Valley Boomerang could immediately tell the difference. That's the point we're going to make here. I mean, there was no fooling people that saw the real article. We got one report that was to provide a lead to a possible cover-up of the UFO sightings. This report indicated that 20 minutes after the UFO vanished, a formation of planes was seen retracing the exact same route that the UFO had taken. This is exactly correct. As far as we could figure out, these planes seem to be trying to fake a UFO, and many people feel that it is an attempt to discredit the sightings and try to convince everyone that all they saw was a bunch of military aircraft. So again, got to credit Philip Imbrogno, the mysterious night flyers. This is an article that he wrote about this. Was this Cessna 02 Skymaster operated by the CIA used to hoax UFO sightings over the Hudson Valley area during the 1980s? Could very well be. Let's move on here. Multiple reports were received of twin-engine Cessna 02 type aircraft flying in formation immediately after sightings of the genuine Hudson Valley Boomerang. Were these aircraft operated by the CIA used as a diversionary tactic to divert attention away from and discredit sightings of the authentic craft? So we're really driving the point home here. So at the very least, we've got ultralights that are flying in formation hoaxing UFO sightings. We've got small single-engine aircraft hoaxing UFO sightings. And we've got the CIA involved in the Cessna Skymaster twin-engine inline aircraft also hoaxing this. So there was a lot of dirty deeds going on here, a lot of back channels, a lot of FAA liaisons between the FAA and these pilots here. So here's the Cessna Skymasters flying in formation. Would this fool you into thinking that it was one solid piece? No. The Cessna Skymaster is a dog of an airplane, for one. It's got so much aerodynamic drag. It's a tragedy of aviation. Everybody knows that in the general aviation community. Everybody knows that it's tremendously maintenance intensive. It's very expensive to run. It burns a lot of fuel, and it's extremely loud because it's a twin engine inline. This thing is extremely loud. There's no way that anyone could mistake this for the silent or almost completely silent Hudson Valley Boomerang. Was there a covert CIA operation based out of Stewart Air National Guard Base during the 1980s? So was there something going on here? Was someone based here that could be used as a base of operations to put forth these fake sighting reports here? Times Union, Albany, New York, February 22nd, 1989. UFOs from the USA. Okay, they're asking the question, is it one of ours? And I've got the map of this area here. You've got Stewart Air Force Base. June 14th, 1984, Peekskill, New York. Norman Morrissey, 33-year-old construction engineer, spotted 9 lights in a V formation while walking from his home to his car. He heard no sound as the object passed overhead, but close observation revealed a dark grayish solid material, quite massive, connecting the lights in a triangular fashion. He compared the structure to steel girders on the frame of a building under construction. This is International UFO Reporter, September/October 1984. So think about what this guy's telling us. Go back to our original slide. Listen to what the witnesses are telling us. So here you've got a construction worker, probably had a lot of experience. He talks about something that reminded him of steel girders on the frame of a building under construction. He would know. He deals with it every day. So what did this gentleman see? Something like this. Walking from his home to his car, he looks up, he sees these lights in a V formation, but he said that he can see this crossbeam, this girder, this material building construction. This is not indicative of an alien technology that's 100 million years in advance in us. Why would they be flying around in craft that have girders and beams and multicolored flashing lights? We would expect them to be flying a light ship, completely devoid of rivets and seams and welds. There wouldn't be any need for multicolored flashing lights. So again, it's pointing to a man-made technology here. That brings us to July 24th, 1984, Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant right along the Hudson River. This plant had multiple UFO sightings, but on this particular night, and I'm going to hit you with the bullet items here. Reporter Dispatch, White Plains, New York, January 12th, 1985. Did aliens buzz Indian Point? They go into detail within this article here, but I want to give you the highlights here. Number one, shotguns were drawn by the security guards. So there were at least 11 Nuclear Regulatory Committee security guards that were pointing up to this thing with shotguns, and they were ready to fire on this thing. National Guard was notified. Number 3, New York Power Authority refused to release details. Number 4, object was 900 feet across. Number 5, the object hovered over the plant for 15 minutes. Number 6, winds on the night of the sighting were gusting to 24 miles an hour. A helicopter gunship was called in to investigate. Number 8, Carl Patrick, New York Power Authority spokesman, confirmed the sighting. Number 9, Larry Rossback, inspector for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, knew the security guards and vouched for their credibility. Number 10, a similar incident took place on June 14th, 1984. So here, it's confirmed. We got it from the New York Power Authority. We got it from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They both confirmed the sighting. July 24th, 1984, Night Siege, page 147, quote, no small planes could stay in formation with the wind that night. The wind didn't phase these lights at all. When it hovered, it just stood there. I was in the service, and I flew helicopters, and I know how hard it is to keep a formation with small planes. I saw no hint of any standard lights that a plane would have. Also, the lights were much too intense for a small aircraft. Indian Point security guard. So here's a guy who knows how hard it is because he flew helicopters. He knows how difficult it is to maintain that formation. What he saw that night was not planes flying in formation. So a couple more items here that I wanted to point out. There was one security guard that was in the plant. He was in one of these further away type buildings, and he was watching a video camera monitor. When this thing flew over the Indian Point nuclear power plant, he said that he had to pan the whole camera 180 degrees to get the whole craft in view. That's how large this craft was when you have these security guards pointing shotguns at this thing. This thing was absolutely massive here. Again, that's that same article, Report Dispatch, January 12th, 1985. Now, let's move on to November 1985, Yorktown Heights, New York. Now, I got this from Linda Zimmerman. She gets credit for tracking down this woman. Maureen Davis is our primary eyewitness. She was waiting for her husband at a stop, not thinking anything of it, waiting for her husband. And then all of a sudden, an absolutely massive black isosceles 75-degree swept wing triangle comes over the horizon and parks itself above her vehicle. She looked up and she could see there were white lights on the back of it because she could see it from the perspective. There was one light on each terminating corner of the craft itself. And then she said that there was a red light that came up from the bottom. There was an opening that looked like concentric rings or banisters from an opera. This amber light went into the bottom of the craft, and then this circular opening concealed itself. Now, when we talk about sizes, and this is confirmed by Linda, who has interviewed Maureen Davis at great detail, Maureen said that this craft was not the size of a football field. I'm going to repeat that. The size of this craft was not the size of a football field. It was the size of a football stadium. We're talking about 800 feet across, hovering over her vehicle. She was a reference librarian. Now, if you can't trust a reference librarian, you can't trust anybody. This is a reliable witness here. May 26, 1988, Middlebury, Connecticut, I-84. I've got the map that shows you where all this went down here. Let me take you to a very interesting sighting at this location. This is what the craft was described at. Now, I've reversed the viewing perspective. I'm way above looking down now. They talk about the boomerang-shaped craft. They talk about the lights beaming down. But let me take you to their exact description so you can hear what they said here. One witness to the UFO was Mrs. Betty Proe of Middlebury, who said that the object hovered over her house without a sound for 2 minutes. There was no doubt in her mind that what she was looking at was one solid object. Now, her husband heard about the official explanation. He could not accept it since he was in the Air Division of the Navy. It was one craft and like no aircraft that I have ever seen in my life. So his wife saw it and he saw it. And the reference is Close Encounters on I-84 by Philip and Brogno. So here's two other witnesses that saw this craft as well. And they concur that this was not planes flying in formation. This was a single craft. Now that brings us to our good friend Stanton Friedman. This is a letter to Tony Gonzalez from Stanton Friedman. This is dated January 17th, 1990. And here he says, quote, I have always been bothered by the Westchester County sightings because I have never heard of actions that would clearly label the technology alien. Quote, wings in outer space could only be decoration, but do, of course, match an earthling approach. So even Stanton is on board with this as being not an alien spacecraft, not an extraterrestrial vehicle, but something terrestrial. He talks about what would be the point of wings, what would be the point of lights on an alien spacecraft. There is no point to it. So again, even Stanton Friedman is concurring with the concept that what we're dealing with here is a man-made technology. So in this presentation today, I wanted to give you a brief overview of the significant sightings associated with the Hudson Valley Boomerang. That was between 1982 to 1989. Quick review, we had thousands of eyewitnesses that saw this craft on March 17th, 1983. Also March 24th, 1983, over the Taconic State Parkway. Virtually all the witnesses agree that we're dealing with a single piece, one solid flying wing type aircraft with tubes, with pipes, with cylinders on the bottom of it, making a low altitude flat turn with all of the lights remaining in complete formation, equidistant to each other. We also talked about the hoax pilots from Stormville Airport who were trying to hoax a UFO by flying the exact same flight path that the Hudson Valley Boomerang did. But we know now that it's two different vehicles. We know that there were hoax pilots and we know that there was the actual vehicle. So thank you for being with me today. And I invite you to tune in to KGRA so that you can see all of the visuals that go with this presentation. Thanks a lot.